Inferno, New York, Part 1. An ordinary summer. The heat came to New York unnoticed, like a guest who doesn't ring the doorbell, but simply walks in and settles into an armchair. The first days of July were hot, but bearable. 32 degrees Celsius in the shade, 60% humidity, the asphalt soft underfoot. People sweated in their office shirts, draped jackets over their shoulders, grabbed iced coffee on every corner. On the subway, they pressed against the cool walls of the cars, longing for a moment of relief. "It'll ease up by evening," they muttered, wiping their foreheads with the back of their hand. But it didn't ease up. By noon, the thermometers in Times Square had settled on 39. The air stagnated over the city. Not a breeze from the Hudson, not a breath between the skyscrapers. The city smog mixed with the heat into a sticky haze. Suits lost their shape by 10 in the morning. Makeup ran down the cheeks of office workers, and in the subway, you could feel every stranger's breath. Heavy, hot, humid. People in taxis took off their shoes, putting bare feet on the dashboard. Their skin burned even through the thin soles. On the streets, they sold cardboard fans with the McDonald's logo, a free souvenir that became an essential item. The third day in a row, 34 degrees. Forecasts promised a drop by the weekend, but the meteorologists on UI-1 looked nervous. Their maps showed a stationary anticyclone over the Atlantic, a huge transparent dome under which the city was melting. On social media, they joked, "Global warming has come to collect its due." But the jokes quickly turned to anxiety. Part 2. The point of no return. Saturday brought 45 degrees in the shade. On the beaches of Coney Island, crowds sought refuge in the water, but the ocean seemed heated. It seemed rather than refreshed. People lay on wet towels, turning over every 5 minutes. Sales of soda and beer skyrocketed. An ice-cold bottle became the day's ultimate prize. Coca-Cola ads disappeared from billboards. Why advertise what swept off the shelves in seconds? Sunday, 48.7 degrees Celsius, the absolute record of the century. The mayor declared a state of emergency. In the subway, they turned on old fans that hadn't been used since the Reagan era. Ambulances with flashing lights appeared on the streets. People were fainting at supermarket entrances. Taxi drivers refused to drive without air conditioning. In the poor neighborhoods of the Bronx and Queens, where climate control was a luxury, cooling centers began to open, libraries, schools, churches. Monday, 49 degrees. It became hard to breathe. The sunny sides of the streets were deserted. Pedestrians trudged along the soft asphalt, unconsciously moving their outstretched arms, trying to cool themselves with the slightest movement of air over their bodies. July swam and melted. The sun blazed from a whitish sky. The long-awaited evenings brought no relief. Windows were flung open, floors were doused with water, people slept naked on top of sheets. In the morning, they hung wet bedding on balconies, where the poisonous ultraviolet rays already burned their hands. Part 3. The collapse of systems. 53 degrees in the shade. This was starting to smell like a natural disaster. The water from the taps ran warm, and by noon, it stopped. The city water utility introduced restrictions. Water was supplied by the hour, by district. Manhattan residents filled their bathtubs as if in wartime. At the corner of Houston and Broadway, they sold water jugs from Vermont and Canada, $10 a gallon. In the parks, the grass withered, trees curled up into brown clumps. The central squares were watered at night, meagerly, symbolically. Air conditioners became currency. They were taken from the windows of bankrupt stores, pulled out of old Cadillacs. In Chinatown, portable battery-operated fans were snapped up. They worked only until the batteries died, and there was nowhere to charge them. The power grids were overloaded, and Con Edison was cutting off districts on a schedule. In subway underpasses, Pedestrians appeared with signs, selling ice, $20 a cube, 55.5 degrees. Factories felt the real water shortage. The surfaces of treatment plants receded, leaving brown, stinking sludge where the water had been. Convoys of multi-ton trucks with trailers began to roll in, water in plastic canisters from Finland and Greenland. Canisters with blue stickers were sold in all stores and kiosks, and the thermometer kept climbing. 59. The city's disaster management headquarters introduced hourly water supply. Advice in the newspapers: wear only light colors, move slowly, don't go out in the sun, drink plenty of water. On the TV show Family Hour, a cheerful family shared their experience: how to manage washing floors, doing laundry, rinsing dishes, and 7 minutes per person in the shower, all within 20 minutes. 1 hour, and everyone is clean and fresh. But now water was given once a day, and even that 1 hour turned into a battle. Part 4. Disintegration. 62 degrees. The lawns of Central Park withered. At night, watering trucks sparingly sprayed only the very center. The leaves curled up and rustled with a dry, tinny sound. The stuffiness on the upper floors under the roofs became physically unbearable. The city headquarters studied Arizona's experience. Roofs were painted with white, sun-reflecting paint. The effect was temporary. The paint blistered and peeled under the intolerable heat. Shorts and t-shirts became not a fashion, but a uniform. Fashion, on the contrary, was to not wear sunglasses and the strongly recommended hats. A distinct fashion emerged among short-haired teenagers. White pith helmets, like those of colonial officers in India. Restaurants were the first to switch to a night schedule. Stores stopped working from 11 in the morning until 5 in the evening. It quickly became customary to wait out the hottest part of the day at home, to rest, to take a nap. The siesta became a normal part of life. Daytime life came to a standstill, but real nightlife began to boil. At dusk, people would crawl out into the streets. Shop windows blazed, cars raced. It was even pleasant and romantic, like a vacation in Greece. 65. Everyone finally understood. Things were seriously wrong. Every day, television reported on scientists' search for the ozone hole. The information was brisk and cheerful, but the causes of the phenomenon defied explanation. In fires, houses blazed like tents. Firefighters in helmets and canvas suits collapsed from fainting. There was no water in the hydrants. As a preventive measure, gas was shut off. Posters urged people to use electrical appliances cautiously. Dropping a cigarette butt on a scorched lawn earned you 2 years in prison. 67 degrees Celsius. The asphalt of sidewalks and the bitumen from roofs began to flow. Moving around the city during the day became dangerous. Sandals with cork soles held up, but going barefoot meant to burn, like from a stove. Hospitals emptied. In the wild sauna of the tents, even a healthy person couldn't survive. Some were taken away by relatives, others filled the morgue refrigerators. At night, excavators still dug cemetery trenches. The steel teeth of the buckets clanged against the clay, baked hard as stone. Part 5. Desert. 70 degrees. The city froze. By day, a white haze over the asphalt, the crack of cooling glass in windows, the rustle of falling plaster. By night, silence, broken only by the creak of cooling metal. Somewhere in the distance, the last air conditioner died. Somewhere, a neon Pepsi sign fell. Somewhere, a cigarette butt smoldered on the dried-out lawn of Central Park, and no one came to put it out. People went down into basements, into the old bomb shelters of Greenwich Village, into the storage areas under the Brooklyn Bridge. Anywhere it was even slightly cooler. During the day, the streets were empty. Only occasionally a silhouette would flash by. Someone in a wide-brimmed hat and white shirt, carrying an umbrella over their head, or a teenager on rollerblades, darting from shadow to shadow. 75. Televisions had given out long ago, unable to withstand the conditions, but the ancient wired loudspeakers still held on, broadcasting messages about underground hospitals, where normal life was being established, about tomorrow's temperature drop, and light music by request. Light and fire rained down from the empty skies. There was no one left to repair the warped rails of access roads or the settled concrete of runways. Not a single plane landed at Manhattan's airfields. Not a single train pulled into the platform at Pennsylvania Station. The last to hold out was a supermarket on Fifth Avenue, a bastion of new Russian and Chinese investors. But when deliveries stopped, it too ground to a halt. Not a single car disturbed the night's silence. With the shutdown of the last power plant, the telephone fell silent, the empty hum of the loudspeakers ceased, and the dying air conditioners cut off their rattle. Part 6. Absurd. 79 degrees. The asphalt turned into black tar. The wheels of cars left on the streets sank into the road surface up to their hubs. The glass in skyscraper windows darkened, cracked, and showered down like rain of shards. On Broadway, melted road signs lay scattered. The letters "Stop" had turned into shapeless drops of metal. No water remained in the Hudson, only cracks in the clay and the rusty hulks of sunken boats. On the roof of the Empire State Building, the wind tattered shreds of a flag, bleached to white. 80. The city had become a desert. Sand filled the streets. It wasn't real sand, but dust. Disintegrated concrete, brick chips, ash from burnt paper. The wind whipped it into whirlwinds, spinning them over the empty canyons of Manhattan. The skyscrapers stood like skeletons, windows blown out, facades cracked, elevator shafts gaping like black holes. On Times Square, a single neon sign flickered. Coca-Cola, but the letters C and A had already gone out, leaving Ocala, an irony of fate, the symbol of coolness in a hell without water. 87. Metal sagged. Car frames settled onto their wheels like dough in an oven. The steel beams of bridges drooped, bending under their own weight. On Wall Street, the bronze bull and bears melted into shapeless blobs. The symbols of the market were the first to dissolve. In the underground subway tunnels, water had solidified. Not water, but a thick sludge, a mixture of evaporated moisture and dust, hardened into concrete stalagmites. Finale. 99 degrees, 90 degrees Celsius. The city had ceased to be a city. It was a desert, white, blinding, without a single sign of life. The sand here did not stir in the wind. There was no wind. The air was frozen in absolute stillness, like glass. The sky, not blue, not gray, but whitish, milky, without a sun, without clouds, without a horizon. Just a white wall over a white earth. In place of Central Park lay a sea of salt, crystals that had risen from the ground, reflecting light with no source. In place of Broadway, cracks in the planet's crust, from which steam seeped. In place of the Statue of Liberty, a charred skeleton, the arm with the torch fallen into the bay, which had turned into a salt flat. The temperature had risen to the boiling point of water, but there was no water. There was no steam either. The moisture had evaporated back at 60 degrees. Only the heat remained. Absolute, pure, meaningless heat. Somewhere underground, in the deepest tunnels, in bunkers built for nuclear war, lights still flickered. People sat in the darkness, drinking their last water from plastic bottles, listening to the crackle of a radio. But communication had been lost a week ago. The last message was short. Temperature 82. Cooling systems failed. Prepare for what? For death? But death is already here. It stands outside the bunker door. It presses against the walls. It seeps through the ventilation shafts. Death, not in the form of a skeleton with a scythe. Death in the form of heat. Infinite, all-penetrating, relentless heat. 90 degrees. Stone cracks. Metal melts. Glass flows. Paper turns to ash without fire. Human skin to parchment. Bones to chalk. The soul to nothing. The city is silent. The desert is silent. The heat is silent. And in this silence, in this white hell, in this absolute heat, there is not even God. because even God in this inferno has nothing to breathe.